Mercy throws us into a future where justice has been handed over to machines, and one of the people who trusted that system most is about to learn how cruel it can become. In a tense version of Lowe's Angels, a police detective wakes up strapped into a chair, facing an artificial judge that already believes he murdered his wife. He does not get days to build a defense. He gets 90 minutes. Every piece of evidence points at him, every second pushes him closer to death, and the only way out is to prove that the system he helped support is wrong. The movie opens after rising violence has pushed the city into a new kind of courtroom. Instead of human judges handling the worst crimes, Mercy Court now uses artificial intelligence to process evidence, question defendants, and deliver verdicts. The promise is simple: machines do not get tired, emotional, or corrupt. They just calculate. The cost is much darker. If the machine decides you are guilty of a violent crime, the sentence is carried out immediately in the same chamber where the trial takes place. That is where Detective Christopher Raven finds himself. Chris is a Lowe's Angels police officer who once believed Mercy Court could make the city safer. Now he is sitting in the Mercy chair, accused of killing his wife Nicole Raven. Presiding over the case is Judge Maddox, a calm and highly advanced artificial intelligence. Maddox lays out the numbers with brutal certainty. Chris is considered overwhelmingly likely to be guilty. The evidence includes blood on his clothing, footage placing him near the house, and a pattern of conflict inside the marriage. If he cannot lower the probability of guilt enough before time runs out, the chair will kill him with a sonic blast. Chris begins the trial angry and defensive. He knows he did not murder Nicole, but he also knows how bad the case looks. He had been drinking again after years of trying to stay sober. He had become volatile after losing his former partner, Ray Vale. The grief from that loss bled into his home life. Nicole had grown distant, and their marriage was collapsing long before her death. Maddox forces him to face that truth right away. As the clock starts counting down, Chris is given one advantage. Mercy Court claims to be fair, so the defendant can use the same data reach as the prosecution. With Maddox acting as gatekeeper, Chris gains access to security footage, private records, messages, location histories, and city surveillance. He realizes that proving his innocence will mean tearing apart every private corner of his life and of Nicole. First major shock comes when he learns that Nicole had been seeing another man. His name is Patrick Burke. Chris is devastated, but he cannot afford to stop moving. He contacts his partner, Detective Jacqueline Diallo, known as Jack, who is outside the courtroom and able to follow leads in the real world. Jack tracks Patrick down and questions him. Patrick reveals that Nicole had been overwhelmed by something at work and no longer felt safe talking to Chris about it. That detail shifts the case. Maybe the marriage was broken, but maybe the murder was connected to something else. Nicole had worked in a company where chemical inventory had gone missing. Chris digs into her records and starts reviewing footage from a work barbecue held at his home. He looks for anyone connected to the theft. The trial becomes less about whether Chris had anger and more about who around Nicole had something to hide. While searching through the evidence, Chris is forced to relive the event that started his spiral. Ray Vale was killed and the suspect walked free. Chris blames himself for hesitating in that moment, and afterward he relapsed into alcoholism. That relapse damaged his marriage and gave the prosecution a powerful story. He was unstable, he was resentful, he had a reason to lash out. Another name surfaces. Holt Charles, one of Nicole's coworkers, had money problems and had been discussing the missing chemicals with Robert Nelson, Chris's sobriety sponsor. That detail feels deeply wrong. Rob was supposed to be a source of stability in Chris's life. When Chris tries to reach Rob, Holt answers instead. Holt insists that Rob was the one really tied to the missing chemicals. Suddenly, the field of suspects changes again. Chris starts scanning more footage from around his neighborhood and his own home. He notices odd movement near the basement during the barbecue. Then he sees signs that someone may have been hiding on the property without the family knowing. Even worse, a nearby camera reveals Rob connected to suspicious activity involving a car trunk. The closer Chris looks, the more it seems like someone had been building a plan right under his nose. He sends Jack and a tactical team to Rob's house. They find the place empty, but in a shed they uncover detailed plans for building a bomb. That discovery raises the stakes immediately. This is no longer only about Nicole's murder. Someone is preparing a larger attack, and Mercy Court might be part of the target. Maddox then finds a buried piece of Rob's history. Rob had a brother named David Webb. Years earlier, David became the very first person executed by Mercy Court. Rob had been carrying that loss ever since. Chris realizes the horrifying possibility. Rob may be using the murder case as part of a revenge plot against the whole justice system. At this point, Chris manages to prove enough that the court is ready to clear him of Nicole's murder. But instead of ending the trial and saving himself, he pushes forward. He knows that if Rob is behind all this, Nicole's death was only one piece of a much bigger plan. That decision leads to another gut punch. Chris checks on his daughter, Britt Raven, and sees footage showing Rob kidnapping her from her grandparents' house. At almost the same moment, the bomb hidden at Rob's place explodes and wipes out much of the team that searched it. The case stops being about Chris's name and becomes a race to save his child and stop an attack before the system collapses. Jack takes command of the manhunt as Rob drives a truck loaded with explosives toward Mercy Court. Chris begs her to be careful because Britt is with him, but Jack becomes increasingly rigid and cold. She orders a direct assault and then plans to destroy the truck before it can reach the building. Chris is trapped in the chair, watching from inside the system he once trusted. When the police try to stop Rob, the situation spins out of control. The truck survives the attempt to blow it up. Rob keeps moving and crashes directly into Mercy Court, sending the building into chaos. The impact causes a network failure that threatens to shut Maddox down before Chris can be released. For a moment it looks like the machine may simply time out and let him die. Instead, Maddox reboots in time and unlocks the chair, allowing Chris to fight his way out. Now the movie shifts into full action thriller mode. Chris goes after Rob inside the damaged court complex while Britt is still in danger. Maddox, no longer just a detached judge, starts working with Chris in a more direct way. Together they keep Rob talking, trying to stall him and force more information into the open. Rob is not a simple villain. He is furious and convinced that Mercy Court destroyed his brother and turned justice into murder with clean branding and polite language. Then comes the real twist. Even after Rob is disarmed, new evidence surfaces showing that he could not have killed Nicole. He had been on a call with his brother's old number at the time of the murder, placing him away from the crime scene. Maddox verifies the timing. That should change everything, but it also raises a dangerous question. If Rob did not kill Nicole and Chris did not kill Nicole, who did? The answer points back to Jack. Maddox retrieves footage involving a phone that Jack had taken possession of earlier and never reported. Additional evidence shows she dumped it instead of turning it in. The missing device belonged to the case surrounding David Webb, the first man Mercy Court executed. Jack admits what she did and why. She wanted the first artificial intelligence court conviction to succeed no matter what. She believed that proving the system worked was more important than protecting the truth in that one case. She buried evidence back then to secure a guilty outcome. David died for it. Rob spent years planning revenge because of it. And when Nicole uncovered pieces of the chemical theft and the connections around Rob, Jack killed her to keep the deeper corruption from surfacing and to protect the image of the system. It is a brutal reveal because Jack has been the person Chris trusted most outside his family. While he was trapped and desperate, he believed she was trying to save him. Instead, she was steering events, using the chaos, and trying to kill Rob before he could expose what she had done. The final confrontation turns into a scramble between truth and control. Rob, broken by grief and rage, still wants the whole court destroyed. Chris wants Britt alive and the truth exposed. Jack wants all loose ends erased. Maddox becomes the deciding force. The artificial judge that began the film as a cold executioner now becomes the instrument that finally uncovers human corruption. But the movie never pretends that this means the system is pure. Maddox can process evidence, but only if the evidence is allowed to exist. Jack arrives armed and ready to finish the job. Britt is still caught in the middle, terrified and trying to hold on to her father while violence closes in from every side. Chris tries to talk Rob down, and for a brief moment it almost works. But before the standoff can resolve cleanly, Jack opens fire. Rob is shot and taken into custody. Jack is also arrested once the full evidence trail is exposed. With the case unraveling in real time, Maddox formally dismisses the murder charge against Chris. The man who began the movie strapped into a death chair under a near-certain guilty verdict is now proven innocent, but the victory does not feel simple. Nicole is still dead. Chris still failed her in many ways before the murder. Rob's life was warped by a lie that the system accepted. And Mercy Court, which sold itself as flawless justice, is revealed to be only as honest as the people feeding it. The final stretch slows down just enough to show the emotional fallout. Chris and Britt reconcile after everything they have endured. Chris also has to reckon with the reality that his support for Mercy Court helped empower a machine that nearly killed him. He was not just a victim of the system, he helped build public faith in it. Maddox remains one of the most interesting parts of the ending. The artificial judge is not framed as evil in the usual sense. It followed the logic and the evidence it was given. It even helped expose the truth once Chris forced the case to keep moving. But Mercy leaves us with an uneasy thought. A perfectly efficient system can still produce horror if it is built on bad incentives, missing context, or hidden corruption. By the time the story closes, the title feels bitterly ironic. Mercy is the name of the court, yet almost nobody in this world shows real mercy until it is nearly too late. Chris has to confront his failures. Rob has to face what revenge turned him into. Jack is exposed as someone who placed a system above a human life and then did it again. So Mercy ends as both a race against execution and a warning about what happens when people confuse speed with fairness and technology with truth. Chris survives, Britt is saved, the killer is exposed, and the machine that judged him becomes the witness that clears him. But the damage left behind is much larger than one case. In this future, the court may speak with perfect confidence, yet the real danger is still the same old human lie hiding behind the screen.